NRL Fantasy Round 3 is in the books, and it was one of the strangest rounds of fantasy of recent history. Just really, really odd. A lot of big scores, a lot of low ones. Some coaches had really bad luck. Some coaches got very lucky in this one. And if you've moved up the ranks, you should just be happy, roll with it. If you went down the ranks, let's reload and let's go into next week. Now, in this one, I think we have to start from the start and jump right down to this guy here, Nathan Cleary. HIA there, category 1, from 7 minutes into the game, scored 5 points. Just a disaster to start the round. Now, most people have Nathan Cleary. But if you look at the top coaches, so top rank right now, it's about 30% only have Cleary. So, coaches who don't have Cleary have done really well. But in general, most serious fantasy coaches did jump on Cleary because statistically he was a good buy, round 1. He scored this 5 points. He's going to lose a bunch of cash. His break even will be quite high. He will miss next week and back at the week after that. All of that being said, I still think he's a hold. So we're going to have a lot of red dots to deal with. That's a real challenge. But Cleary's a guy I am 100% holding next week. And my thinking here is he'll be priced maybe even below 800K. And it's a massive discount for Cleary. He's only out for 1 week. He'll come back. HIA, it doesn't linger. Re-injury risk isn't serious either. So I look at this and I just go, you know what? Park him on the bench. Play him next week. Not a captain option for a little bit. I'm a little bit worried about his scoring, but that's more compared to Payne Haas than it is anything else, right? So you got to go Payne Haas or Terrell May most likely as your captain. So Cleary, hold on to him as my advice here, but you can react, get mad in the comments. If you had Cleary as captain, drop a comment. If you had someone else as captain, let me know who you captain instead. I'm keen to hear whoever on captain and get a bit of a feel for that because I think more people went Haas than Cleary anyway. And let's see what the comments say. Next up here, Papali'i. 23 minutes for Isaiah Papali'i being absolutely wasted at the Panthers. He should move to a club like Parramatta who could use him, but that's just my personal bias. He will get nice and cheap, and at some point he'll be a buy for fantasy. But for now, it's not looking great for him. Tyron Wishart got on 46 minutes, grabbed the try. He may step into the team, so Jarom Hughes is getting scanned for a broken hand, potentially. That could mean Wishart gets 3 to 6 weeks, and it could be interesting, but at 539K, he's very expensive. Moving through, Nick Meaney, he's out, copped a pretty bad injury. I think it was a jaw break there. So for him, he had a low break even anyway, but he'll be out for a bit. Tom Jenkins came in. He had a massive score in Supercoach, very low in fantasy. I think the fantasy score of 25 is more fitting. Like he had some good moments, but then some shockers as well. Look, rookie fullback, I'm not holding against him at all. But if he did get a wing spot at some point, I'd be interested. But at fullback, Dane Laurie comes back soon. Jack Howarth, I wouldn't stress too much. So looking at this guy, 26 points. It was a no attacking stat game from him. You can see on the stats here, 6 tackles, no misses, 3 tackle breaks, 150 meters run, and no attacking stats, basically. So that's fine. That's his base. I wouldn't stress about it. Jarom Hughes, 31 points, really quiet from him. Cam Munster, 32 points. I'll talk about Cam Munster here because he had 3 try assists in this one. They were all no line break try assists, so not as impactful on the stat sheet. 24 tackles with 5 misses. That knocked 10 points off. And then 80 meters run, 127 keep meters. And then, the 2 penalties and a couple of set restarts as well. So he racked up a few negatives here. In fact, the total there was about minus 20. So minus 19, minus 20 there. So you take those off. That takes it from a 52 to a 32. And you throw in the fact that, the attacking stats weren't super impactful. So with Munster, I think we're forced to hold him, especially with the Cleary injury and Watson potentially out next week too. So I'd stick with Munster, but in general, I am disappointed in that score. Moving through, Jack Cole, decent game. Cleary went out. He kicked for 318 meters. So that was a big game from him, 100 meters run. Cole without Cleary is going to be interesting. He racks up a few negatives, but he'll do a bit more playmaking. Even if they bring Schneider in, I'd say Cole will step up more. So you can play Cole in your 17 next week. Pappenhausen, really quiet. This is him, like very low base stats is the issue for Pappenhausen. So even with the try assist, line break assist, he scored a 36, not ideal. And then Harry Grant, 40 points. He had 6 meters run and 6 missed tackles. So that kind of hurts, right? Look, it was 45 tackles, 40 points. It was just a very defensive performance from him, not a lot of attack, which is really disappointing. And then Isaiah Yeo bounced back, 60 points for Yeo, 42 tackles, 2 offloads, 136 meters run, and basically nothing else. So that was just a base game from Isaiah Yeo. Back to normal. If you have Yeo, enjoy. If you don't have Yeo, potential target at that price point. Moving through, Nafahu White jumped into this week really strongly, so 57 minutes played. Lindsay Collins was out late in this one, so that meant White got more minutes. Grabbed a try as well. That boosted score up quite a bit. But with that try, that really only bumped him up from about, let's say sort of low 50s up to 69. So he was still having a good game even without the try, but that just made it even better. So Nafahu White, he's really killing it right now. I still think that when they get back to full strength, he will drop off. And I base that on the fact that Spencer Leniu came in and played 53 minutes, right? So Lenu's going to eat up a bunch of those minutes. We're going to see Nat Butcher come back and eat minutes up. Lindsay Collins will come back and eat minutes up as well. It's eventually going to eat into White's minutes there. Nickel Clockstad, I'm not reading into it too much. He has gotten cheaper, but sort of meh for fantasy for me. Chad Townsend, again, not reading into it too much, but the kick meters were very friendly. Just an awkward price point for him. And 42 tackles is pretty insane, actually, when you look at that as well. 42 tackles, 2 missed. I don't expect that to repeat. Then Ali Leotawa, good game. And then Suo Wong played 80 minutes. Again, 54 tackles here, 57 points. So very defensive performance from Suo Wong. I don't know if you can read into it when Nat Butcher and Lindsay Collins come back. Like, it could mean that he does get his minutes reduced. But we did talk about him last week as a viable cheapie. So I just think you're a week too late now if you jump on Suo Wong. So I think you had to do it last week if you were going to do it. It's paid off that risk. So if you did get on, great work. Tedesco, another good game. Crichton, another good game. Could have been better, but you'll take that even with the 6 missed tackles. Low 50s is absolutely fine. Then Ford, Fisher-Harris went well, but less minutes, 48 minutes. Bit concerned about that. Egan keeps on pumping out 80-minute performances. He is killing it right now. Victor Radley, 60 minutes, kind of meh, but Victor Radley will get cheap at some point. He's already dropped some cash, so a bit 45K so far, and he's going to drop more cash because of that low score when he had the HIA as well. Chanel Harris-Tavita grabs another try, scores another 40-point game, killing it. Aaron Clark, not enough minutes to be worth it, 44 minutes there. And then rolling down the list here, Mitch Barnett, big disappointment. I'm not going to talk about everyone in every game, right? But there's a lot of noteworthy guys at the start here. So Mitch Barnett, 49 minutes, 37 points. He's gone 28 tackles, 156 run meters. Like, the 4 missed tackles, no other stats there. So really, really weak fantasy production there for Mitch Barnett. He played fine in real life. Like, he wasn't bad in real life. He was impactful in real life, but just didn't translate to the fantasy stat sheet. And sometimes we talk about guys as not having a great fantasy game when they had a great game in real life. For Mitch Barnett, the big thing there is offloads. You want to see a few offloads. You want to see a few tackle breaks. You want maybe a few forced turnovers. The pure base stuff doesn't normally get you there in terms of getting a big score. Then Halasima had more minutes there, 33 points. That base price, you'd be pretty stoked with that. 5 tackle busts, that really speaks to his attacking ability. Blake Steep, 29 minutes, 32 points. PPM machine, just won't get the minutes, so not worth it. Sandon Smith, he had the lower game on his side, so 32. Look, reasonable game from him, though. So a few more kick meters, 100-plus run meters, 20 tackles, only 2 misses. So I look at that and I go, you know what? In a tough game where they didn't really get much attack going, that 32 is pretty good in terms of base for Sandon Smith. He can go quite a bit lower than that as a pure running half. Then Nwani Tuase there, 29 points, had the try that he dropped. That might have taken him up to, let's say, another 8 points plus, minus the error there as well. So on a 10, so maybe 39 with that as well. Still just hasn't had that pop game, Nwani Tuase. And then we'll go past him and we'll jump down to Connor Watson. So Watson played the first half, copped the HIA, was off that game. I believe they might be contesting it, so he might be available next week, but I have no confirmation on that yet. So just keep an eye out on that. He might get named and he might play next week, but let's wait for confirmation. At hooker, though, he didn't have the best stat line here, so 30 tackles and nothing else, really. So good defensive work rate, but he wasn't really attacking like he normally does, but I would have expected him to open that up in the second half. And then down the bottom here, Metcalf, quiet game, 375 kick meters is encouraging, but 9 run meters is a disaster. Like, you look at Metcalf, and the upside of Metcalf is the running game, right? So 9 meters is, I don't know. It just didn't feel like he was sort of doing what he normally does in that game, and hopefully he bounces back to that next week. But if he sticks with those sort of meters run, he's not going to be a viable fantasy option at all. Rob Toya, I'm not too worried here. 100 meters run, 20 tackles made. Just didn't have the attacking plays or the busts or the offloads. I'm not stressed. I think that 24 is about his base game. He's a center who costs 332K right now. He cost 250K at the start of the year. He's going to be fine. And then no one else really I want to talk about down the bottom there. So let's move into the next game. Rolling through Broncos and Cowboys, and this used to be a classic derby. And to be transparent, the Cowboys did get it a bit closer than expected here, but the Broncos got this done. Look, first goal you're going to talk about is this man here, Payne Haas, and just wow, what a start to a year. So 3 games in, 90-point average. He's had a try and a try assist this year. So not an absurd attacking output, but a pretty strong one for him at prop. But you look at him in the stat line here, and you just jump across to try, 2 line breaks, line break assist. So 2 line breaks is unstoppable. You throw in the 9 tackle breaks as well. So he's just busting through left and right. 210 meters run. So again, on the ground, he's pumping out points. And you've got the 5 offloads here, 2 to hand. So 2 to ground, 3 to hand. And then 36 tackles as well with the 1 miss. And that's his first missed tackle of the year. So with Payne Haas, it's just impossible to ignore him, right? I bought him this week as soon as Dylan Lucas went down. It was my advice to everyone. If you guys jump on the Pimp My Team video, you would have seen it. But I was saying, sell Dylan Lucas, sell Hosking, get Payne Haas, and figure out who the second person is after you've got Haas. Because if you get that opportunity to buy Haas, you have to go get him. Now, if you don't have Haas, don't stress too much because you can still get him. I mean, it lost you some points this week, but you can still go get him. He'll be pretty expensive, but at this point, it looks like he's still value, right? So he priced closer to 70 points, but he's just killing it. So you got to go get him. Don't stress too much. Just jump on. That stat line was incredible. Adam Reynolds, I wouldn't really freak out too much. Now, the average to start the year has been a 67. Absolutely awesome. But in general, he's not that guy, right? So he's been a 48 to 52 average his entire career. I would expect that to normalize as the year goes on. But this game was great. Like try assist, you had the try there, line break, no missed tackles there, 30 tackles made, nearly 500 kick meters, like absolutely dominated, but not someone I'm interested in for fantasy. Paddy Carrigan, decent, but again, I'm not interested. He's priced pretty expensively. Clifford, we could talk about Clifford. So 54 points, had all the kick meters there. Good defensive work rate. We could talk about it. In a draft league, he's interesting, but at 525K, it's hard to make that leap. Jackson Purdue saved the day. And look at this, our little 245K cash cow pumped out a 50 for us. We are absolutely stoked about that. So yeah, for Jackson Purdue, you got the try, the line break there as well. You've then got 200 meters plus run, no missed tackles, no errors, so no negative stats. He rocked up and he did his job. And we did talk about that during the week that Brisbane's edges are a bit fragile. He did his job, right? So I'm stoked with that for Jackson Purdue. I think he's a good player. It's a tough transition to play center when you've grown up playing fullback and half. And I think he'll continue to have these sorts of games here and there. But he's also going to keep having those sub 20-point games as well. So not a trustworthy starter every week, but if you're at a pinch and they have a good matchup, which they don't for the next couple of weeks, then you can use him. It's just tough because the Cowboys do have a tough run of fixtures coming up. Neiman Robson, not super noteworthy. Jansen, Corey Pakes went well, 57 minutes. He got the 42 points. That's 40 tackles and basically nothing else there. So good defensive work rate from Pakes there. And then Ruben Cotter back to a bit of normality with 40 points, but it's 41 tackles, 40 points, right? So again, just pure defense and then a bunch of negatives there that wiped out all the attacking stats. So for him, he's down 50K. He'll drop more cash this week. Could be a pod, but the Cowboys' buys aren't good either. Shibasaki with a 39 had the line break there that helped the score out quite a bit. Jesse Arthurs grabbed another try, just keeps on scoring tries. 38 points there with a try and 2 line breaks is not ideal, but the matchups are good, so he's going to keep scoring decently most weeks. Bateman, 8 missed tackles. What do you do there? Minus 16 points for missed tackles. That just wipes him from a 50-plus score to 37. Only 61 run meters here and not a lot of attacking stats to speak of. So yeah, for Johnny Bateman, you sort of have to get off this train. It's not really going anywhere. Murray Talangi, he bounces back. He's down 75K this year. So he is a bit of a cheapy option, but the matchups aren't good and the Cowboys aren't that good right now. So I can't recommend it. I was hoping you'd get a bit cheaper than this before we jumped on. Reece Walsh, this is interesting. So I was thinking about Reece Walsh this week because he has the Dolphins coming up. Now, the 35 has me a little bit worried. He's going to drop a bunch more cash. Could be an option we look at. I just want to touch on some of the stats here. So you had the try assist in this game, 7 tackles, 2 missed tackles. The 4 tackle breaks is fine. An offload there, 5 errors. 5 errors on the back of, I think it was 4 errors last week. So a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes coming through. And there's a lot of new pieces in this Broncos backline. So maybe it's just a case of gelling. Maybe Katoni Staggs back next week. That'll help him a bit too. I'm not sure here, but it just hasn't clicked for Reece Walsh so far this year. So he hasn't scored above 50 yet. Had that -2 last week. He'll be cheap though. And the Dolphins is a matchup that I do like. I think the Dolphins are still figuring it out in defense. They got smashed by the Tigers this week. So I might still get on Walsh just because, we won't have Marzu. You guys won't have Ponga, whoever else this week. Walsh is very interesting to me. And 167 kick meters is surprising here too because he keeps on doing that even with the good halves that the Broncos have as well. So we'll do more on Walsh this week, but he's going to be either in the buys or the pods section this round. Tamalolo had a few really poor defensive efforts, so I wouldn't expect the minutes to increase from this. But yeah, legend of the past. Scotty Drinkwater, 34, so back to earth. Didn't score his try this week, but yeah, he'll get cheap as well for us. Again, Drinkwater's a guy that I'm very interested in when he gets to about 500K. Then down the list here, Kobe Hetherington, 33 points in 36 minutes. He is falling off a cliff. Ben Hunt, another quiet game. So he dropped cash last week. He's dropping it again. 149 kick meters is not a lot, and 31 run meters is not a lot either. Got the 6 missed tackles there too. 32 is probably pretty generous, actually, when you map that out. And then our legend, Brendan Piakura. What a guy. And he has come off the bench and played a lot of minutes in this one. So 48 minutes here, 15 tackles, 3 tackle breaks, 66 run meters as well. He's done a bit here. And if Piakura can get down to about 250K and get the starting job, or even if he gets it this week when he's like 280K, I'll jump on Piakura 100%. I love that. I love that dude. Like, I know he hasn't done a job for us in fantasy so far, but he's the mascot of the show. Got to do it. And he has the upside. So he can average sort of 40, 45 points in this team because there are so many attacking stats on offer. It's just a case of does he do it? But at that low price point in the 200s, if he's a starting back rower again and plays close to 80 minutes and Jezewski isn't on the bench, he could be an absolute weapon. Then Kai O'Donnell, Wilson, Jezewski. Yeah, so 32 minutes for Jezewski, 21 points with a try. Not great. Derby, quiet one from him as well. Cobbo having a really quiet one. He's had a very weak set of base stats this year, Cobbo. It's a very try-scoring reliant. Tommy Dearden is getting so cheap. So he dropped 53K the first 2 weeks. Another 18-point game. Just a disaster for his stat sheet. So he's going to get really cheap and be interesting as a pod. Same with Jeremiah Nanai, 11 points in 33 minutes. Just a disaster for fantasy for him too. And Violea, he had a couple of quiet ones in a row. So yeah, he's going to drop down in cash as well. But Nanai and Dearden are two pods that you could look at as they get cheaper and cheaper. Now, rolling through to the Sharks and the Rabbitohs. And this was a game that really wasn't close. So it sort of felt like, Cronulla had this one under wraps. And as a result of that, a few of their players hit some nice attacking stats. So Ronaldo Mulatalo, 76 points. I'm not really reading into it too much. I've had a few DMs from people who have Mulatalo. So good on you if you got on this pod. He's an interesting one. He has dropped a bit of cash, but not a guy I'd be targeting in my team. Had, the try assist, a couple of line breaks there, 8 tackle busts, 200 meters run. He's a great winger, but just not a guy who's consistent enough for fantasy. Nico Hines, interesting here. So I'm going to talk about the pluses and the minuses on Nico. But for Nico, the try is good. Try assist, like attacking stats, that's fine. That's a part of his stat profile. You expect that. And when he versus South Sydney, you pencil that in because you know that Cronulla are going to get it done against South. The interesting part here is no negative stats, so no missed tackles, no errors. He normally has a couple of those in there. And you've got the 3 offloads, which are good. It's good to see him doing that as well. 100 meters run, that's good to see him back to that. But the 181 kick meters is too low. And that's what's going to stop him from stretching into the upper echelons of fantasy. So in previous years when Hines was relevant, he was kicking for 500 meters or, 400 meters or whatever it is. And that bumps his score up to maybe an 85 instead of a 74. And that's where you see that gap, right? So if he has that big game, it's 80 plus instead of 70 plus. And the small games are 50 plus still instead of, 35, 40 points. So for Nico Hines, I like him at this price point, but he's probably not someone I'm targeting. I'll have a look at the fixtures this week, I guess. Like, if they have a good run of fixtures at some point, that's probably when I'd jump onto him. But until then, he's a hard one to jump on. Just when you're using your cash to go get Payne Haas and there's some discount options available, it's a real pod play, Nico Hines. But you just need to see. I'd love to see him kicking the ball a bit more. It is good that he's goal kicking, but there have been those little injury niggles. Just one that, if you've got the pod, enjoy it. If you don't, it's a high upside risk, right? But you are relying on these attacking plays. That's the big thing I want to hammer there. Then Jamie Humphries, been very strong in base stats previously. This was a more attack-heavy game from him. So 74 points, had the try there with a line break, a couple of tack breaks. Interestingly, 45 tackles at half, which is just so many. And, 4 missed tackles here, so that's fine. At that tackle clip rate, I'm okay with that. No offloads or anything like that. 80 meters run. 371 kick meters is a bit lower than previous weeks, but if we ever scroll down and see, Cody Walker did steal a few. So, 150 for Cody Walker. That's balancing out a bit. That reduces his base by about 5 points, right? So, for Jamie Humphries, you just downgrade him slightly, but he's getting more and more confident as an attacking footballer. So, I'm feeling good about Jamie Humphries. Like, if you don't have Humphries, you got to get him 100%. And Kale Ira, we talked about him as a bit of a pod preseason. Look, 2% owned. I think that went up from about 1% last week. 61 average. Just massive. But he is scoring tries to get these numbers. So this is a try, line break, 7 tackle breaks. 264 meters run is absolutely huge. Like, this guy is an absolute beast. Now, KLR, if you want a pod center, you could do it. It's not where I'm putting my money, right? So I'm trying to buy guys like, Payne Haas and some of these other pods instead. But KLR, he's sort of like Nico Hines. If they get the right fixtures, he has unlimited upside and you could jump on. Trindle, I'm not super interested in. Now, it's sort of a mixed bag of stats every week. So this is a 61, but includes a try assist, field goal, like bunch of different stats there. Then the 35 meters run's a bit low. Trindle is interesting to me when he's running the ball a bit more. And 304 kick meters, so more dominant in kicking, but it just seems to be everywhere with Cronulla, so I'm not trusting it. Peter Marmazelis, 63 tackles, 58 points. Look, that's just a defensive work rate game. I'm not stressed about any of it else. Like, he's just a defensive hooker. Played 80 minutes in this game. Good sign for him. He seems to have locked in that role. He is a beast in that spot, and we love it. So stick with him. If you don't have him, you got to get him. Cam McInnes, AFB, Kolomatangi, these kind of middling scores. Wilton there. Kennedy keeps racking up some attacking stats. He is rising in price, but not super interesting to me. Just very reliant on attacking stats. Nakora with a try there, scored a 40. You'd be disappointed about that. Brayley back to earth, missed some minutes in this game. Only 34 tackles as well, so a bit more of a normal score for him. Then we go down Ramian, like Duncan here. There's no one else super interesting to talk about. Cody Walker, he's going to get cheap, but is he worth it without the kicking game? Probably not. Ravalawa, first game over at South Sydney, 20 points. If Ravalawa held the spot, which I see as unlikely, he'd be interesting when Latrell gets there because he's a good finisher and a good ball runner, but I just don't see him holding a spot long term. And then down the bottom here, Stone Street quiet. Jack White and 14 with a try is a bit of a disaster when you talk about fantasy production there. So let's keep moving through. Dolphins and Tigers. Now, this one was an interesting game. It was closer than it looks here. So the Dolphins were on top for parts of this. The Tigers got on top. Look, West Tigers are 2 wins in a row, so I'm stoked for them. If you're a Tigers fan, I'm happy for you. Enjoy your footy. That's great for a club that hasn't done well in recent years, and the fans of the Tigers deserve a bounce back. Now, Dolphins, you guys deserve a win soon too, right? So I'm hoping that both of you can do well. But Herbie Farmworth here is just pumping out numbers on numbers on numbers. Like, this guy is just unstoppable at center. So a try there, a try assist. You got the 8 tackle breaks, 3 offloads, 200 meters run. Like, this guy is just pumping numbers. And we talked about Herbie Farmworth as being expensive in the preseason. Well, he's pumping out a big average here, 62-point average. He was priced at a 55 to start the year. He was value. He was value. In hindsight, he was value. Like, he's come out and done a job, and he could just keep doing this all year. Like, he could be the best center in fantasy without blinking. Like, especially with her Dylan Lucas going out. Herbie Farmworth is unstoppable. Now, is this where I'd be putting my money? Probably not. But if you wanted a super pod, he's a guy who can go 100 plus. He gets hot. It's just very expensive. Terrell May is one that you definitely do have to have, and hopefully we all do by now. But 65 minutes on the dot every week. So 42 tackles. Only 1 tackle break, only 1 offload as well, which is very interesting because these are quite low stats considering what he normally does. You got 200 meters run there, and you got the 2 turnovers too. So more of a defensive performance from Terrell May. Now, it just shows that he can get it done regardless of what the role is. So I think he has serious potential to go big, and I think he is genuinely right there with Payne Haas in terms of captain options. The big thing about Terrell May here is I think there's a bit less risk with Terrell May, so it's very unlikely that he's going to play below 60 minutes. Like, he's always going to play this role, it seems to me. Like, it seems that 65 is what he plays. Whereas Payne Haas, he has those games where he plays, 40-something minutes, but then also has a 70-minute game as well. So we'll talk about Haas as well, but I think Terrell May is a guy you should consider captaining every week. And he had a few plays where he nearly went over and scored in this game, which would have bumped his score right up to like 90 points instead. So I'm really high on Terrell May. I know everyone is, but I'm a bit higher, I think. He was my captain this week, and I think he is a guy you should consider every week. Coruscant, good game from him. 57 minutes is not good, but 70 points is. Just not interesting if he's not playing 80 minutes, though. He needs 80 minutes to be relevant for fantasy. Seyfarth grabbed a try that saved his score. A lot of angry people were mad about Seyfarth during that game, and when he grabbed that try, everyone chilled right out. But he's rolling. He's making cash. You're good with that. Safidi, Katoa. I mean, we could talk about Katoa. 115 meters run. Had nearly 500 kick meters as well. 7 tackle breaks. The running game's come out for Katoa, and he's up 45K this year. He's going to go up more. He had the 70-plus score last week. This average is pretty crazy. If you want a pod, I mean, he's pretty expensive now. But if you want a pod, I can't say a complete no to him because just the stat production's been fantastic this year. It's a hard one. The issue with Katoa is he can come out and score 30 points any given week. And he has had those years where he scored 25 every week. I think he's more mature now. Not someone I'm targeting, but in certain draft leagues or if you were really after a pod, could be an option. Max Plath, 47 points here, 70 minutes, so a bit lower in terms of the minutes, just base production here pretty much. Not super interesting. Then rolling through, we've got Galvin with 40, Taruva, 2 tries. Taruva scoring some tries this year, I will give him that. Gilbert played 80 minutes, but scored 40 points. So 40 points with the 41 tackles, some negatives. Pretty boring 80 minutes from Gilbert in terms of fantasy production, but the 80 minutes is kind of encouraging. So if he does play 80 minutes every week, his average bumps up into the 50s 100%. Without the 80 minutes, if it's more like 60, like we forecast preseason, then it's more like a 50 average, 50 to 52. I still haven't really changed my mind on that. His average is down to a 49 this year, so it sort of fits right into that. Then rolling down the list here, who else we got? I mean, Dewey's there. Stafford Toa scored a 33, had a couple of try assists, but not an outstanding game from Toa. 89 run meters is pretty low for him, so you want a bit more out from him than that. But he is startable, and especially this week when we're missing so many players, he's definitely startable. Jerome Luai is going to get nice and cheap, so 27 points from him. More run meters this week, so 80 run meters. Had a few kicks, but just no tackle busts, no attacking stats. We haven't seen too much dynamism from Jerome Luai. Skelton got hurt, so keep an eye on that. There will be a new winger, most likely. I believe it was a hamstring. Finafuyaki, quiet game from him. Played his normal minutes, but just really quiet. Sako, very quiet as well. Bula, really quiet. He's going to lose cash. Jack Bird, 50 minutes again, so not enough minutes to consider. And then down the bottom here, the Hammer is an interesting one. 21 points in this one. Only 90 meters run. Bit low. He started the year this year with a really strong base stat game and has been really quiet the last 2 weeks. So he was on my watch list after that round 1 game, but just has sort of gone back to that more boom or bust mentality, I think. So yeah, you can't jump on him. Hopefully he gets nice and cheap and we can target him later. Then Averillo quiet. Royce Hunt, 18 points. Like he's sort of always down the bottom of that Tigers list. Impactful in real life, but just not a fantasy producer. Then Titans v Knights up next. And for this one, Jaden Campbell lit it up. So Jaden Campbell, if you're a Jaden Campbell owner, by the way, congrats to you. And congrats to me. Like we got our boy. Now, Jaden Campbell's one that we had to really struggle with because we had the bye round 1. We had a pretty rough showing in round 2. So in round 2, he was on about 20 points with 20 minutes to go. Then he pulled out the running game again and bumped himself up to about a 46 after updates. So we looked at that and sort of went, you know what? Good score for base stats. He'll have his boom games later. This was one of those boom games. So the Titans tore up. He had 5 goals in this game. The try, a line break assist with defensive numbers. So 23 tackles, only 2 misses. And then going through, an offload, a turnover, 70 run meters. I think that'll go up as the year goes on. And 556 kick meters. Now, that in terms of base stats is absolutely crazy. That's 18 points in kick meters. So 18 points in kick meters, that's a very good base. And if we can count on him for about 15 points in kick meters there as a base, maybe 20 or so points for tackles, that's pretty generous, but let's call it that. We're looking at about a 35-point base there. And then you've got the running game, let's call it 70, right? So maybe, 40, 42 points as a base. Then you throw in attacking stats, goal kicking, all that sort of thing too. Like, he's a scorching hot option. And if you have too much cash, I actually think he's one of those guys who could pump out a 60-plus average this year. We talked about it preseason. I was chatting to Rob and Lockie in Casual Crew as well, and they were talking about him as well as someone they think could be nuclear. And basically everyone in the Casual Athlete team, we all jumped on Jaden Campbell because we think he could be that 60-plus average wing fullback. So this game was really positive for that. Thomas Cant is one that I won't be reading into too much. So interesting price point, 458K. Pumped out a 76, almost exclusively in base stats here. So 56 tackles, 153 run meters. Few things here and there in terms of pluses and minuses, but overall a very base-heavy game. And for him, I'm worried about the fact that Kai Pierce-Paul comes back so soon, and Frizzell is a capable edge back rower as well. So even with Dylan Lucas out for 6 weeks, he's just not someone I fully trust, Thomas Cant, because I think the role could reduce, and I think he's definitely behind Frizzell and Kai Pierce-Paul. So not a guy I'm jumping on, but if you did want to take a gamble, could be an option. Fletcher Sharp, I can't ignore this guy. I've been kind of ignoring him, if I'm being completely transparent. Like I watch him play. I love watching him play. I watch the scores. I think, you know what, this guy's so fun to watch. But for fantasy, it just doesn't really make sense, right? And we've never seen a guy pump out an average like this with this kind of stat line. That's my concern here. So you're basically, when it comes to Fletcher Sharp, the question is he going to break the mold for what a 60-plus average player looks like or what a 55-plus average player looks like? And the way he's doing this is he's pumping out big run meters, attacking stats, or big run meters most weeks, not this week. No kicking at half at all. Decent defensive numbers and just involvement across a bunch of different stats. So for him this week, for example, 2 try savers, a line break assist, 27 tackles, 3 missed tackles, 6 tackle breaks. You've got the 2 offloads here as well, 1 error, 2 forced turnovers, and an 84 meters run with a kick diffused and a penalty. Like, it's just so many stats. So we'll do a deep dive on him this week, but it's difficult. Like, they got the bye this week. I probably still can't bring myself to jump on Fletcher Sharp because this line is just like, who's the best player of this? Like, I think the closest thing you could draw to Fletcher Sharp in terms of a successful fantasy season from a guy like this would be maybe Dylan Brown at Parramatta in 2022 when he was really hot. He was next to Sean Lane, who was killing it. I think he pumped out about a 55 average that year. But Dylan Brown's very durable in defense and had higher base stats in terms of running the ball. I know it's a tough one. I mean, maybe Cam Munster when he averaged 60 plus, not a dominant kicker of the ball, but that's Cam Munster, right? So you know what I mean. You're sort of like Fletcher Sharp. I get the appeal, and a bunch of you guys have been DMing me about Fletcher Sharp. I get the appeal, but the thing is, you're redefining the position here by jumping on him. Now, he could redefine it, right? He is a very good football player, but just be aware of that. Like, he statistically he's due for a game at about 30 points. Like, he is due to hit one of those. And if you bought him and he did that and you've paid up big money for him, then you'd be a bit burnt. But at the same time, he could keep pumping out these numbers. And he can go bigger than this too. Like, this stat line isn't crazy. If you throw a try onto this, and if the Knights didn't get beaten 26-6, this could have been like an 80-point, 90-point game. So Fletcher Sharp is just perplexing. He's a tough one to predict. Brabham Best, 67 points for him. Grabbed the try, 6 tackle breaks, 181 meters run. Just a very strong game from him. And Best is a bit more straightforward. He plays center. He runs hard. He gets the ball. You know how much he's going to get it. Like he scores tries. That's pretty straightforward. But Fletcher Sharp is outdoing him so far this year by a small amount. Bo Firma pumped out a big game, had the try here. The try really boosted up the score. So for that one, you're looking at about plus 17 points for the try. So you take that try off, you're looking at more like a score in the mid-40s. That's still fine, right? If you hit scores in the mid-40s and you throw attacking stats on, which he's very capable of, I'm good with it. Like, he's killing it right now, 65 average so far this year. Adam Elliott, big minutes again. More of a draft league option than a classic league option. Keanu Keeney, good game from him, 46. He's dropping a bit of cash, so he might be an option in the future if you like the pod. Fodder Waker, Kelly, Frizzell there. Not a great game from him, 56 minutes. I thought he might score a bit better. Dave Fafita played 55 minutes. That's increased. 39 points isn't great. The try there is good, but overall, he's just getting cheaper and cheaper. Dave Fafita is going to be a pod that we jump on 100% when he gets the 80-minute rollback. Big Tino, 39 points. So this is one of those more quiet games from him. 5 missed tackles, an error, a penalty, 140 meters run, 30 tackles. Like, a few offloads there too. This is the lower end of what Tino can do, but he has those big breakout games as well. So across the year, the average is 57, which you'd be happy with. But if you bought him this week, you'd be pretty unhappy. Down the list here, who else we got? RCG, another quiet game from him. Ponga, very quiet game. Now, we can talk about Ponga now. This one was interesting. So for Ponga, 131 meters run. It's been up around 200 to 220 so far the start this year. 38 kick meters. That's been more like 150 to 200 this year. He was a bit less involved. He let the halves do a bit more. Maybe that was intentional. I'm not sure it was a strategy. The 4 errors is tough. We've had a few fullbacks making a lot of errors this year. But for Ponga, I mean, less attacking stats as well. It really is the base, though. So the attacking stats, they're going to come and go. But the base he was putting up the first 2 rounds would have put him up around a 40 most weeks. This base is a lot lower, so I'm keen to see if this is a trend or just a one-off. Now, Ponga has a bye this week, so if you have Ponga, you stick with him. You stick with him, because even in this game, he did look good. He just didn't have those big moments go his way. So you stick with Ponga, but it is a concerning trend. The run meters and the kick meters are the concerning trend. And when you watch him next game he plays in round 5, watch for those run meters. Watch for him passing the ball off on a kick return. Watch for him kicking the ball. Like, you're looking for those things. They're the ones that matter, because attacking stats, they come and go. But the base stats is what you're buying someone like Ponga for. Down the list here, Cogger, Randall, Brayley. I mean, Brayley will be cheap when he goes to Canberra. So we'll buy Brayley at some point. Mazu, rough one for us here. 3 offloads, 4 tackle breaks, 137 meters run. That's it, right? And then some errors. And he had a bit of a shocker as well. But I'm not super worried about Mazu. Like, this is a low meter game from him. The offload production has continued, and that's the big thing we look for there. So I'm good with it. The price point he's at, we can live with it. He's not as expensive as Ponga. I'm not as stressed. Then down the bottom here, Hetherington and Brimson we got to talk about here. So for Brimo, 7 missed tackles wipes out the entire defensive work rate. So 16 tackles, 7 misses. That's plus 2 points for his defense. Sorry. You got 3 tackle breaks. You have 84 meters run, 54 kick meters. So no kick meters basically. He's not kicking the ball, and the run meters aren't high enough either. Nearly had that break that would have been a try, but it was called for a forward pass. So he could have popped up to a decent score. But Brimson's a guy that I still kind of believe in, right? So I don't have Brimson in my team, but he's a guy where I'm watching him, and I want him to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and then I'll buy him 100% when he's down at about 400k or 390k or whatever it is, because I believe in Brimson and the Titans. I reckon they're a team that figures it out. I sort of keep saying this, but I just reckon they're a team that will get it together. Great forward pack. It's a fun spine. Brimson's attacking stats will come. But if you're an owner, it's frustrating because that 13 is an absolute Disaster. Tony Francis as well. He's not who I went with this week. I ended up going with Stafford Toa. I was close on Kautonga too, Parramatta, so Kautoga. Kautoga ended up starting in the back row. That was interesting, but unfortunately I didn't get confirmation on that before the Broncos game, so I was locked into the trades I had. Now, for Francis here, yeah, look, not a lot of meters run. The ball just didn't go his way. I think the matchups, though, if you did buy Francis, the matchups are good over the next 3 weeks. So I think the attacking stats will come. But that 4 is not good. And it's not a good start to his cash production at all. Rolling through, we've got the Eels and the Dogs moving to Sunday games. And for Sunday, Jermaine Hopgood is an interesting one. And I don't know. I've seen a few people jumping for joy about this one. So 67 points is absolutely fantastic. It's awesome, right? But 57 minutes, and he had a big rest in the middle of the game. So that 57 minutes is not good. Now, maybe we're seeing a bit of the pain halves effect where they're telling him, go hard while you're out there. But I just don't really think it's that. I think this is a bad sign if you have Hopgood. And you wanted that 70 minutes to continue, right? So 57 minutes is not enough for him to continuously produce for fantasy. The stat line here, 48 tackles is absolutely huge. Only 98 run meters and, a few offloads there. Has a lot of errors in his game right now for some reason. I'm not sure what's going on there. But, yeah, look, overall, I wouldn't be jumping for joy about this one. If you have him, and if you don't have him, I probably wouldn't be targeting him just because the minutes were the appeal. And the scores go up and down, right? But the minutes is what I was hoping for there. Zach Lomax next. Now, 57 points from him. Very involved in this game. Basically no attacking stats. Had a line break there. 300 meters run, 8 tackle breaks. He was involved. He basically just willed Parramatta into a position to be in a shot here. And if everyone at Parramatta played like Zach Lomax, they would be a much better team. But unfortunately, he's the only one that plays like Zach Lomax. So right now, it's still a bit of a mess of a roster. You can't trust Zach Lomax. Jacob Preston, 55 points, pure base stats basically. So 45 tackles, 4 tackle breaks, 67 meters run is not a lot. You take it, you take the score, but you hope for more this week. And the involvements weren't great, but you take the score. He's averaging 50. He's doing his job. He'll bounce back. Jack Williams, another 52. He's on report, so keep an eye out for that. Sexton, we said he'd jump up this week without Burton there. 979 kick meters is just absurd, though. That is absolutely crazy. 32 points from kick meters, not much else. I might post that to the Instagram story after this because that's crazy. Hayward's in there. Good score from him. Could be an option if you're in a draft league. Not going to be long enough without Burton to jump onto him in a classic league. Then King, solid. Paulo, bounce back, decent. Hayes got some more minutes in this one too. Curran, Zeri, yeah, look, Penasini grabbed a try. Hawkins came in, played well, 615 kick meters. It's interesting for Hawkins because he comes in and in this parasite, essentially Dylan Brown's not really playing like a half at the moment. He's playing the running 6 style without the running part at the moment. So I'm hoping he can figure that out. And I know he's dealing with a bit of pressure right now, but as a para fan, it's very frustrating to watch. But for Hawkins here, yeah, he was doing all the kicking and the attacking stats will come for him, I think. So, it's not long enough without Moses to jump on him. But if you're in a draft league, he's a very capable backup option. Sean Lane, quite one from him, 33 run meters. Again, just not involved enough. I would be very surprised if he's starting back row next week. Tupanua, yeah, he came off the bench and 38 points is decent enough. Kautoga is very cheap, played most of the game, had a HIA, so he might have played 80 minutes. We don't know, but he might have played 80 minutes without the HIA. So for him, 38 points is very solid. 37 tackles, not a lot of run meters, only 27. You know what I mean? Like it's very hard to predict with Parramatta because he had some decent moments, Katoga, but he had some shockers as well. So Reed Marnie, absolute shocker for him. 7 missed tackles there, 32 points. He's getting cheap. Reed Marnie actually might be an option that we buy at some point pretty soon. So keep an eye on him. He's getting nice and cheap. I will be considering him at around 500k, 100%. Lussick started this game, which is a bit strange to me. He came in, replaced Brendan Hands, played a lot of minutes there, 45 minutes, took a lot of minutes off Riley Smith. Then down the list here, Dylan Brown, 30 points here. Didn't really kick the ball. 70 run meters. Pretty uneventful. He's going to get very cheap, but I don't expect him to bounce back while at Parramatta. I think he'll be a guy that we look at next year when he's at Newcastle because the way he's playing right now, it feels like he's kind of checked out. Then Isaiah Yongi. And also, if it sounds like I'm a bit of a Parramatta fan, it's because I just watched us lose another game, and I absolutely am. So just excuse my bias, by the way, as a Para fan. Sometimes that definitely comes out, but I'm not gonna moderate it completely. Isaiah Yongi here, 30 points for him. Had the try assist there, 200 meters run, 4 tackle breaks. Like this is a better game from him in terms of fantasy production. He's a guy that I've still got in my team. I'd be open to selling him if I had the right trade, but I haven't sort of fallen into the right trade for him yet. So if I end up sticking with him for next month, I wouldn't be that sad as well. Like he's kind of on that fence of you sell him if it benefits you, but don't force a trade for him. Then rolling down the list here, Riley Smith, 36 minutes, 24 points, 29 tackles here. Got a bit more involved, so a few run meters here, but big thing is kick meters as well. So he had a few nice kicks. He had a few runs where I thought he was going to break free, but he drew penalties instead. So they were good runs, but they weren't ones that rewarded him on the stat sheet. Now, for Riley Smith, I think the signs were good. He looked good. Joey Lussick is concerning, but in general, if you have him, I think he's looking better and better each game. So at some point, he might break out and sort of earn those bigger minutes. But until then, you don't really trust him as a guy in your 17 because it's mid 20s, maybe 30 points area. That's where he's going to sit. At Okar, he's going to get nice and cheap as well. Hopefully, Parramatta get better when Moses comes back and he is relevant for fantasy then. And down the bottom here, nothing too interesting. So we'll jump into the other game of the round. Now, Seagulls v Raiders. And this was a tough one to watch because the Raiders were in this game and they had a lot of pressure on them. And then they copped that sin bin with Corey Horsburgh and just started, sort of falling apart, right? So Manly were up like 24-0 when Horsburgh came back from his sin bin. It was absolutely crazy. And Ruben Garrick was the big beneficiary here. So 90 fantasy points. That might go up because that's pre-updates. But 4 tries in this game, 6 goals. He had the try saver, 3 line breaks, 7 tackle breaks. Not a lot of run meters. So overall, this is a very quiet game from Garrick other than the tries. But the tries save you score. And if you're an outside back, that's part of your stat profile, right? So for Ruben Garrick, enjoy that win. It was looking dire and it really heated up and he was one of the best scorers of the round. Hudson Young, he just gets this done all the time, hey. Look, a try in this game, boosted him to about 70 points. Mooney played decent minutes here. Look, if Mooney ever played decent minutes consistently, he would actually be super interesting, but he just doesn't. And Tarpanay comes back soon, so I don't expect it to happen. Corey Horsburgh copped a sin bin in this game, which was a -5 over here and a -2 over here, so the sin bin and the penalty. Even with that knocked him down from 62. He lost a few minutes from that as well. He could have had a massive game here. But I think the fact that he had that sin bin, it meant that was kind of his rest, and he got back on and played some more minutes. So for him, 40 tackles, 4 tackle breaks, 4 offloads, 70 run meters isn't good, but they got absolutely smashed. So, yeah, Horsburgh sort of made lemonade out of lemons there with that 55 points. I'll live with that 100%. Bullimore, 2 tries, 50 points. Don't go by him. Olakau'atu, actually, you know what? I mean, Paseka's out, so maybe he will step up, but I don't think so. Olakau'atu looked better than this score. Like when you watch the game, he looked really good. This score is not that great. 200 meters run is very encouraging. Maybe it'll update a bit. I would expect it to go into the low 50s. But he had a few plays where he sort of set up the try, but he didn't get the try assist because there was another pass or whatever. So I think he had more impact than the stat sheet suggests. And if you have Olakau'atu, you'd probably stick with him after that performance because he looked so dangerous. Nicholson, pure base stats here, 44 tackles, 52 meters run, 47 points. Like it was just a base game from him, and you can live with that. 47 is absolutely fantastic. Trey Evans, 42, really quiet from him. Fogarty, 41, another quiet one. They got smashed, so you got to cop that. And then Tommy Starling, 54 minutes, so a bit lower this week. Got run over for a try early in that game. 45 tackles and then not much else here. So I think that's more of a return to earth for Starling. If you have him, you stick with him. If you don't have him, he's not someone that you should be targeting as a buy. Then down the list here, Takiaho played more minutes because of the injury to Paseka. Ben Trebojevic, 38 points. He's actually been going quietly well. So 37.7 average at center. Not the worst. Oh, and Paddy is really interesting. So this is 27 minutes, 26 tackles, line break, tackle break, 60 meters run, 40 kick meters. Paddy is a guy that he sort of seems to be increasing in role, and it hasn't been a linear increase, but it feels like he's earning more and more, and he's definitely the future hooker at Canberra. So at some point, I think he will get a meaningful role here and score consistently. Now, 37 points in 27 minutes is not what I expect, but I don't know. Like if you cashed out to him, it's a slow burn. It's a slow burn. But at 230K, he'll bump up a bit from there with that score. But at a low price, he is pretty interesting. Like I reckon you could do worse than Owen Paddy at that price point. KO Weeks had a better game, but still quite quiet. So he's getting nice and cheap. Brooks, meh. Mariota, Trebojevic. Man, 28 points in 76 minutes as a middle forward is. He used to be a fantasy beast, Trebojevic. Not anymore. But in his prime, he was absolutely fantastic. And down the list here, Matt Tomoko back to earth, 22 points. That bumps his average down to a 47.7, which is more in line of what we forecast. Tolu Kola nearly had a try in that one, didn't have it. So that 20 points is what he gets. Paseka, Achilles injury. Looked pretty bad. Tough for a big man who is sort of in that fringe of origin. Like that really sucks for him because he's a fun player to watch, Paseka. So hopefully a quick recovery. Hopefully he's okay. But it does open up some minutes in the middle for fantasy implications. I'll have to look into who it is during the week. I don't know. When I saw the injury, I was sort of just thinking about him because he's a guy I like to watch, but I'll figure that out during the week. Tamale, 19 points here, so really quiet from him. A few tackle breaks, the offload. He had a few nice plays, but he's a winger in a team that got absolutely destroyed. So what are you going to do? You kind of got to cop that. And down the list here, Strange, another quiet game. So he had the 10-point game recently as well. This is a 14-point game. 16 meters run is just outrageously low for a guy who's a running six. They got smashed, right? So it wasn't his kind of game. He's going to be cheap, though. Like Ethan Strange, I actually might jump on him as a cash cow at some point. Like he's going to get really cheap. Hopefully he gets down to about 300K. Then we can just do Ethan Strange round 2 for this year. Jason Saab, quieter, went off early in this one. Tavanga, just really not scoring well for fantasy at all for some reason. If you look at this stat line, just no runs is basically the issue. Falalo came in, didn't do much for fantasy. Smithy's copped a HIA, so he probably will be out next week as well. Again, that's kind of good news for Corey Horsburgh. And Savage, we talked about him as a potential crazy pod. He was in a team that got smashed, and he didn't get the numbers that, for 48 meters run. This is what Biz talked about last week. Like, he's the kind of guy who, Jay-Z talked about last week. He's the kind of guy who can just rock up and not do much in a game as well. Anyway, that's the recap for this week. So to summarize this, I think the big one is Cleary is a guy that you have to hold on to. I'm pretty firm on that. I think you got to find other ways to get Payne Haas if you don't have him. Outside of that, I wouldn't be reacting too much to big scores. So I wouldn't be freaking out about Jermaine Hopgood's big score because the minutes weren't great. Garrick, for example, you don't have to go get Garrick because he scored 90. Like, he scored 4 tries. He's a good option. He was a good option after his low score last week. He was a good option after his high score this week. But the immediate score shouldn't skew you on that one. And then other than that, we're going to be talking about the big issues this week. So do we go for Walsh? Do we read into Walsh's form because it's been bad this year, or do we back the bounce back against the Dolphins this round? So that's a big one to look into. Other than that, guys, hopefully you went well. If you like I said at the start, if you dropped off, just reload for next week. And if you rose up the ranks, thank your lucky stars that you got a bit lucky with people with Cleary getting the captaincy injury. That's all I can say. Just crazy round of footy. Hopefully you went well, guys. I'll see you on the next video.